The first time I died, everyone at Hawthorne Girls Academy agreed it had been an accident. The second time I opened my eyes, the homeroom bell was ringing, rain streaked the windows, and Serena Vale was leaning over my desk with a blank statement form in one hand and my favorite black pen in the other. "Just sign the bottom," she whispered. Her smile was soft enough to fool a camera. "I'll fill in the details later." I stared at the empty lines above the signature box. My name was already printed at the top. Mara Ellison, Year 12, Homeroom 12B. Beneath it, someone had typed incident report, unauthorized recording, and academic misconduct. My fingers went cold. I knew that form. 3 weeks from now it would be used to prove I had admitted planting a hidden recorder in our classroom, stealing examination questions, and blackmailing a teacher. 4 weeks from now, I would lose my scholarship. 5 weeks from now, I would stand on the old science building roof while Serena begged me to hand over the only copy of the recording. 6 minutes later, I would fall. Then I would wake here. Serena tapped my pen against the paper. "Mara?" I looked past her. Ms. Bell was writing attendance on the board. 23 girls were unpacking laptops, comparing homework, complaining about the rain. Nobody was watching closely. That had been the trick the first time. Serena never threatened people where witnesses could hear. She wrapped commands in concern and let everyone else supply the innocence. I smiled. Of course. Relief flashed through her eyes. Then I took the form, folded it twice, and slid it into my blazer pocket. Her smile froze. "What are you doing?" "Keeping my copy." "It isn't your copy." "My name is on it." I clicked my pen shut. "So, I suppose we'll ask the principal who owns it." For one sharp second, the person beneath Serena's perfect posture appeared. Not the admired prefect. Not the debate captain with the silver service pin. I saw the girl from the roof, rain plastering her hair to her face. One hand locked around my wrist while she hissed that no one would believe a scholarship charity case over the Vale family. Then the mask returned. "You're confused," she said lightly. "This is only to protect you." The bell stopped ringing. And from inside my school bag, beneath 2 textbooks and a broken umbrella, came a tiny mechanical click. Serena heard it. Her gaze dropped. I had forgotten that sound. Not because it was unimportant, but because death had buried it beneath bigger noises. The roof alarm, the crack of thunder, my own scream. The click belonged to the old digital recorder my father had given me before he died. I used it to record lectures because stress made details slip away. Yesterday, in this new version of my life, I had charged it out of habit and left it running during homeroom. The recording had already begun. Serena's eyes rose slowly to mine. I placed my bag beneath my chair with my shoe. "You were saying?" Ms. Bell turned from the board. "Girls, settle down. We have an announcement regarding the Ashcroft Scholarship interviews." A ripple went through the room. That scholarship was why Serena needed me ruined. The Ashcroft Foundation awarded 1 full university bursary to a graduating student who combined top marks with community service. Serena had the service record, the family name, and half the faculty convinced she had been born considerate. I had the highest grades in the year and a file of volunteer work Serena did not know about. The selection panel had placed both our names on the final shortlist that morning. In my first life, I thought rivalry explained everything. I had been wrong. Ms. Bell held up a stack of envelopes. "The final interviews will take place next Friday. Candidates must submit verified service logs, academic declarations, and a character statement signed by their homeroom teacher." Serena sat beside me. Her expression remained serene, but her left thumb pressed so hard into her notebook that the nail turned white. Ms. Bell began distributing the envelopes. When mine landed on my desk, the class clapped politely. Serena clapped too. She always knew when to perform generosity. "Congratulations," she murmured. "Thank you. You'll need help with the declarations." "I'll manage." Her eyes flicked to my pocket, where the blank confession waited. "You really shouldn't carry paperwork that could be misunderstood." "Then it's lucky I understand it perfectly." Across the aisle, my best friend Nisha stopped unzipping her pencil case. In my first life, I had kept every warning from her because Serena convinced me secrecy would make the scandal disappear. It had done the opposite. Isolation was the first plank in the trap. This time, I turned to Nisha and said, clearly enough for 3 nearby girls to hear, Serena just asked me to sign a blank incident report accusing me of misconduct. The room did not fall silent all at once. Silence moved outward in rings. A conversation near the windows broke off. Someone stopped laughing. A chair squeaked. Serena's face remained still, but the color withdrew from her lips. Nisha blinked. She asked you to do what? Serena gave a small, wounded laugh. Mara misunderstood. I was helping her with a draft. A draft with no words? I asked. Ms. Bell looked over. Is there a problem? In my first life, I had lowered my head. In my second, I stood. Yes, I said. And I think we should discuss it while my recorder is still running. Nobody breathed normally after that. Ms. Bell set down the attendance sheet. She was 32, careful, and usually impossible to read. In my first life, she had signed the character statement that described me as academically capable but emotionally volatile. I had hated her for it until the week before I died, when I discovered the statement had not been written in her language. It had been uploaded through her staff account while she was supervising a sports carnival. Now she walked toward my desk. You have a recorder running? Yes. I use it for lessons. It's listed in my learning support plan. That mattered. Hawthorne permitted approved classroom recordings for students with documented concentration difficulties, provided teachers were informed. Ms. Bell had approved mine at the start of term. Serena knew that. She had simply expected me to forget. Turn it off for the moment, Ms. Bell said. Then give me the form. Serena moved first. I can explain privately. No, I said. The single word landed harder than a speech. Serena's head turned toward me. I removed the folded paper from my pocket and placed it on the desk, but kept 2 fingers on it. Before anyone touches this, I want Nisha to photograph both sides. That's dramatic, Serena said. So is an accusation of academic misconduct. Nisha already had her phone out. She photographed the form, the printed heading, the empty lines, and the signature box. Then she sent the images to me, herself, and our year advisor before anyone could object. The first crack in Serena's plan was not the recording. It was distribution. Evidence becomes fragile when only one person owns it. I had learned that while falling. Ms. Bell took the report and read it twice. Her brows drew together. Where did this come from? Serena's answer was smooth. The Student Welfare Office asked me to collect preliminary signatures because of concerns about recordings in class. Which person in welfare? I don't remember. One of the assistants. You don't remember who instructed a student prefect to obtain signatures for a misconduct report? The room sharpened around us. Serena glanced at me, and I understood what she was calculating. She needed to know how much I remembered. She had no reason to suspect I had lived these weeks before. To her, my sudden resistance was either luck or betrayal by someone inside her circle. I may have misunderstood, she said. I was trying to be useful. Then you won't mind coming with me to the deputy principal, Ms. Bell replied. A laugh burst from the back row and died immediately. Serena stood with the dignity of someone accepting an award. Of course not. Ms. Bell looked at me. You too, Mara. I bent to retrieve the recorder. That was when Serena knocked her water bottle from the desk. It happened too perfectly. Her elbow clipped the metal bottle. The lid flew loose, and water poured directly into my open school bag. Girls gasped. Nisha lunged for my books. Serena dropped to her knees beside me, apologizing in a rush. Oh my God, Mara, I'm so sorry. Her hand disappeared beneath my history textbook. I caught her wrist. We stayed like that for 1 beat, both kneeling, water spreading over the floor, her fingers 2 centimeters from the recorder. Let go, she whispered. Of you or the evidence? Her pupils tightened. Then Ms. Bell said, Serena, stand up. I lifted the recorder. It was damp but still lit. The red recording symbol blinked steadily, almost cheerful in the chaos. Nisha exhaled. That was not subtle. I dropped a bottle, Serena said. You dropped it sideways, Nisha replied. The class erupted into whispers. Serena rose, smoothing her skirt as if the movement could iron the moment flat. I dried the recorder with the cuff of my cardigan, saved the file, and created 2 copies on my phone. One went to cloud storage. The other went to Nisha. Then I did something I had not planned. I sent it to Serena. Her phone buzzed. She looked down at the message. Homeroom_12B_17JUL_audio_copy. Now you have one too, I said. So there can't be any misunderstanding about what was recorded. For the first time, her confidence did not merely flicker. It cracked visibly. She stared at me as though I had changed species. The deputy principal's office smelled exactly as I remembered: lemon polish, printer heat, and the peppermint tea Mrs. Harrow drank to avoid coffee. On the wall hung photographs of former school captains, including Serena's mother, Celeste Vale, class of 1998. Celeste chaired the Alumni Foundation and donated enough money each year to have a building named after her, if she wished. She preferred influence, without signage. Mrs. Harrow listened to Ms. Bell's account without interrupting. Then she examined the blank report. This is not an official current form, she said. Serena looked relieved, too quickly. Mrs. Harrow continued, it is based on a retired template used 8 years ago. The header has been altered, but the document code is obsolete. I remembered that detail from my first life. I had never known why it mattered. Could a student access it? Ms. Bell asked. Not through the current portal. Mrs. Harrow turned the sheet over. Where did you obtain this, Serena? Serena folded her hands in her lap. As I said, someone from welfare gave it to me. Name? I'm not certain. Male or female? I wasn't paying attention. Where did the conversation occur? Near reception. What time? Before assembly. Mrs. Harrow's questions were ordinary. Serena's answers were not. Each one was vague enough to avoid verification, and together they created a shape with no center. I listened quietly, because I had made a mistake in my first life whenever Serena lied. I rushed to contradict her. That allowed her to adjust. Silence gave her room to commit. Mrs. Harrow finally looked at me. Tell me exactly what happened. I described Serena placing the form on my desk, giving me the pen and telling me to sign the bottom so she could fill in the details later. I did not mention rebirth, the roof, or the 5 weeks of events waiting ahead. Truth did not require every truth at once. Do you have the recording? Yes. Play the relevant section. Serena turned. The class had not begun. I did not consent to a private conversation being recorded. Mrs. Harrow glanced at Ms. Bell. Mara's approved accommodation allows her to record homeroom and lessons, Ms. Bell said. Students were informed at the beginning of term. Serena's jaw tightened. I pressed play. Her voice filled the office, warm and gentle. Just sign the bottom. I'll fill in the details later. Then my voice, keeping my copy. Then hers, no longer warm. It isn't your copy. The silence after the playback felt alive. Mrs. Harrow placed the form in a clear evidence sleeve. Serena, until we establish the origin of this document, you are suspended from prefect duties. You are not to contact Mara about this matter. Serena's eyes widened. You're suspending me over one sentence? I'm removing you temporarily from a position that grants access to student information. My mother will.
She stopped.
There it was. Not a threat exactly. A reflex. Mrs. Harrow heard it too. Your mother will be informed through the usual process. Serena stood. Her chair scraped the floor. She looked at me, and for a moment I expected rage. Instead, she smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on the roof just before she said, "You should have signed when I gave you the chance." Of course, she said. I'm sure this will be cleared up. I knew then that the blank form had only been the opening move. And because I had changed the opening, Serena would change everything that followed. By lunchtime, Hawthorne had produced 7 versions of what happened. In one, I had secretly recorded Serena changing clothes. In another, she had caught me selling exam answers. A third claimed the deputy principal found a microphone sewn into my blazer. By the time Nisha and I reached the courtyard, 2 Year 11s were whispering that police had searched my locker. That was fast, Nisha said, stabbing a fork into her pasta salad. It was prepared. She stopped chewing. You think she planned the rumors before she gave you the form? I think the form was supposed to make the rumors look true. Nisha studied me. She had known me since year 8 and could detect a lie from the way I held my shoulders. You're acting like you've seen this before. Rain tapped against the covered courtyard roof. Around us, girls leaned over phones, pretending not to look our way. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say I remembered her crying outside my locked bedroom after the scholarship board rejected me. I remembered ignoring 31 calls because Serena had sent screenshots making it appear Nisha had helped spread the accusations. I remembered learning too late that the screenshots were edited. But rebirth sounds like madness when spoken before lunch. I had a nightmare, I said. A very detailed one. About Serena? About trusting her. Nisha accepted that more easily than I expected. Good nightmare. My phone vibrated. An anonymous account had posted a photograph of my recorder beneath the caption, "How long has Mara been spying on us?" The image had been taken that morning when I lifted it from my wet bag. Serena's face was cropped out. Nisha swore. I'll report it. Wait. The account was 6 minutes old. It followed 38 Hawthorne students and only one external page. Veil Futures, the youth volunteering charity run by Serena's mother. That could be carelessness. Serena was rarely careless. Unless someone else had created it for her. I took screenshots, copied the profile link, and sent everything to Mrs. Harrow. Then I commented publicly beneath the post. This recorder is an approved learning accommodation. The audio has been provided to school leadership. Please preserve this post for the investigation. The post vanished within 20 seconds. Nisha grinned. That sounded terrifyingly official. I learned from terrifying people. A shadow fell across our table. Serena's closest friend, Elise Grant, stood there holding a tray she had no intention of eating from. Elise was tall, nervous, and perpetually half a step behind Serena. In my first life, she had testified that she saw me enter the staff workroom before mock exam papers disappeared. She had lied. Or I had assumed she had. You shouldn't provoke her, Elise said. Nisha looked around theatrically. Did a weather warning just speak? Elise ignored her. Mara, delete your copies. Say the recording malfunctioned. This can still stop. Why do you care? Because you don't know what you're touching. Then explain it. Her gaze moved to the students nearby. Not here. Here is safer. Elise's throat worked. The report wasn't Serena's idea. I felt the future shift beneath me. Whose was it? She set her tray down, but remained standing. I can't say. Then you haven't helped me. I'm trying. No. You're transferring fear. I kept my voice low. Someone frightened you, and now you're asking me to become frightened enough that you feel less alone. Her eyes filled before she blinked the tears back. You think this is about a scholarship? Isn't it? Elise gave one short, humorless laugh. Ask where Veil Futures gets its volunteer hours. Then she walked away. Nisha stared after her. That was ominous. It was worse than ominous. It was specific. In my first life, the school accused me of falsifying service records after investigators found my student number attached to dozens of suspicious volunteer entries. I had assumed Serena planted them merely to disqualify me. But the Veil Futures database contained hundreds of students, corporate donors, and grant-funded projects. If the records themselves were fraudulent, framing me might have served a larger purpose. The scholarship was not the prize. It was the flashlight I had accidentally pointed into a locked room. That afternoon, I skipped the bus and went to the public library with Nisha. We used a computer unconnected to the school network and searched Veil Futures' annual reports. On the surface, everything gleamed. Smiling students planted trees, packed food hampers, and tutored children beneath captions about leadership. The charity claimed 42,000 volunteer hours the previous year. 42,000? Nisha said. From one school network? 5 partner schools. That is still 8,400 hours each. We downloaded every public report from the past 4 years. Then we compared project dates with school calendars, weather archives already saved in local news reports, and photographs on social media. The first impossible entry appeared at 4:17 p.m. Vale Futures claimed 80 students completed a 6-hour coastal cleanup on September 14th. Hawthorne had been closed that day because a storm flooded the access road. The project photograph showed bright sun and girls in summer uniforms. A reverse image search led to a council newsletter from 3 years earlier. The second entry was stranger. 30 students supposedly delivered winter supplies to a shelter that had ceased operating 8 months before the listed date. The third used the same group photograph twice, mirrored once, to document 2 different events. Nisha leaned back. This isn't Serena padding her resume. This is institutional. I opened the Ashcroft Scholarship criteria. Community service records were verified through approved organizations. Vale Futures was one of them. Serena's application claimed 960 hours. Mine claimed 212, all completed at a literacy center where I shelved books, tutored primary students, and cleaned paint from tables every Thursday. I had once felt embarrassed by how ordinary those hours looked beside Serena's international youth initiatives. Now, ordinary looked honest. My phone rang from a blocked number. Nisha shook her head. I answered anyway and placed it on speaker without speaking. At first, there was only faint breathing. Then a woman said, "Mara, this is Celeste Vale." Serena's mother had never called me before. In my first life, the first words she spoke directly to me were on the science building roof through Serena's phone. "Give my daughter the recorder, and we can still help you." Her voice now was polished and maternal. I understand there was an upsetting misunderstanding today. Serena is devastated. I looked at the rows of fraudulent hours on the library monitor. I'm sure she is. Teenagers sometimes act hastily when they feel pressure. Mature young women know when a conflict deserves compassion rather than escalation. You're asking me not to report the form. I'm asking you to consider whether damaging another girl's future will improve your own. There was the moral disguise. Serena created danger. I became cruel for refusing to absorb it. I already gave the recording to the school, I said. A pause. I heard. Celeste's warmth thinned. Recordings can be incomplete. Context matters. So, do financial records. Nisha's head snapped toward me. On the phone, Celeste said nothing. I continued. For example, context might explain how 80 students cleaned a beach during a flood closure. The library seemed to contract around us. When Celeste replied, her voice was different.
No worms. No motherhood.
You have no idea how many opportunities Vale Futures has created for girls like you. Girls like me. Scholarship girls. Grateful girls. Girls expected to mistake access for ownership. I know exactly how many hours it created, I said. That's the problem. The call ended. Nisha stared at the phone. You just told a powerful woman we found her fake charity records. Yes. Was that wise?
No.
A printer started behind us, though neither of us had pressed anything. One page slid into the tray. It showed a grainy photograph of me entering the public library 10 minutes earlier. Beneath it, in large black letters, someone had typed, "You kept the wrong recording." Nisha grabbed the page by its edges. Do libraries normally threaten people through printers? Not in my experience. The print queue showed no username. I scanned the room. A man slept beside the newspapers. 2 university students shared headphones. The librarian stamped returns at the front desk. Near the emergency exit, a girl in a hawthorn raincoat disappeared around the corner. We ran after her. The corridor beyond the exit divided toward the bathrooms and underground parking. By the time we reached the stairwell, a door was swinging shut below us. Nisha started down, but I caught her arm.
No.
We can catch her. Or follow her somewhere without cameras. Death had cured me of chasing answers into isolated places. We returned to the computer. The warning had said I kept the wrong recording, not that I found the wrong records. That distinction gnawed at me. I took out Dad's recorder and opened the file list. There were 9 recordings. 8 were labeled by date and class. The 9th displayed no date, only recovered _001. I had never seen it before. The file was 37 minutes long. Nisha leaned closer. Play it. Static crackled through my earbuds. Then came the scrape of desks, distant footsteps, and the hollow acoustics of Homeroom 12B after everyone had left. I recognized the day immediately. Yesterday afternoon, I had returned to class for my forgotten bag and found Serena coming out. She said Ms. Bell had asked her to close the windows. The recording began while my bag was still beneath the desk. At 2 minutes, Serena's voice appeared. They shortlisted her. Another woman answered. Celeste. That was always possible. She scored higher than me. Then marks will not decide it. Paper rustled. A drawer opened. Serena said the service audit could expose all the linked profiles. Only if it reaches the foundation. It won't. What if Mara appeals? She will sign an admission. The old form is safer because it does not trigger the portal notification. My skin prickled. Nisha whispered, "That is the blank form." The audio continued. Serena sounded less certain than I had ever heard her. And if she refuses? Celeste replied, then the examination file appears on her account. Her service login becomes the source of the duplicate hours, and your witness confirms she entered the workroom. A frightened scholarship student will accept a quiet withdrawal before she risks expulsion. A third voice spoke from farther away. She might not.
Elise.
Serena said she will. Mara apologizes when other people step on her shoes. The 3 of them laughed. My vision blurred, not because the cruelty surprised me, but because the version of me they described had been accurate. I had spent years treating politeness as protection. I believed that if I remained reasonable, evidence would eventually matter. I had not understood that people like Celeste relied on my reasonableness. They built traps from the distance between what I would never do and what they were willing to do. The recording shifted. A chair scraped. Elise said, "I don't want to testify." "You already signed," Celeste replied. I signed a blank witness statement. My hand tightened around the recorder. There were 2 blank forms. Celeste's voice hardened. Then be grateful we filled yours with something harmless. Your father's company Build Veil Futures for transport never provided. Your signature is on the youth committee approvals. If this becomes fraud, you are not outside it. Elise began to cry quietly. Serena said, "Stop making this unpleasant." Nisha pulled out her phone and recorded the playback as a backup. I uploaded the original file to 3 storage accounts, then emailed it to Mrs. Harrow, Ms. Bell, the Ashcroft Foundation's independent ethics address, and a journalist whose investigation into school charities I remembered reading in my first life. That article had been published 2 months after my death. In the life I remembered, it mentioned accounting irregularities at an unnamed youth foundation but said key records had been destroyed before investigators arrived. This time, I attached the annual reports we had downloaded. The moment I pressed send, my fear changed shape. It did not disappear. Fear rarely does. But it stopped being a wall and became weather, dangerous, temporary, something I could move through. Nisha listened to the remaining audio. Near the end, Celeste outlined the whole sequence. Serena would obtain my signature. Elise would report seeing me near the workroom. A staff login would upload stolen examination material to my student drive. The forged service hours would then make me look like a habitual fraud. Each accusation supported the others. No single piece needed to be perfect. Then came a final sentence I did not remember hearing in my first life. Serena asked, "What about Ms. Bell?" Celeste answered, "Her account is already compromised. Once she signs Mara's character statement, she becomes useful. If she resists, she becomes responsible." The file ended. Nisha removed the earbud slowly. "We have to go to the police." "We will.
Now."
"First we need Ms. Bell." A message appeared on my phone from her before I could call. "Mara, do not access your school account. Come directly to the administration office tomorrow morning. Your login has been flagged for downloading confidential examination material. The trap had accelerated. Serena no longer had 5 weeks. Neither did I. At 8:10 the next morning, I walked through Hawthorne's front gates carrying no laptop, no recorder, and no school bag. Nisha walked beside me. Her mother waited in a car across the road with copies of the audio and instructions to call the police if we did not return within 30 minutes. Students watched us cross the courtyard. The anonymous account had returned overnight with a new claim. School confirms recording girls stole exams. This time, I did not respond. I had learned the difference between silence forced by fear and silence chosen before impact. Mrs. Harrow met us at reception. Ms. Bell stood with her, pale and furious. "We received your files," Mrs. Harrow said. "The school's legal advisor and the board chair are on their way." "Is Celeste Vale coming?" I asked. Mrs. Harrow hesitated. "She requested to attend as Serena's parent." "Good." Ms. Bell stared at me. "Good. I don't want her hearing the evidence secondhand." We entered the boardroom at 8:17. Serena was already seated beside her mother. Elise sat at the far end with her father, who kept whispering into his phone. 2 school governors joined by video. An Ashcroft Foundation representative had been invited after receiving my email. On the central screen was a login report showing my account had downloaded the mock mathematics examination at 11:46 the previous night. Celeste wore cream silk and an expression of grave disappointment. "Mara," she said, "this has gone much too far." Serena looked directly at me. Her confidence had returned. She believed the digital record would overpower the audio. She believed I had arrived to defend myself. I had not. I sat opposite her and folded my hands. "Before we begin," I said, "I would like Serena to explain why she told me to sign an empty confession." Serena's smile was almost kind. "I never used the word confession." "Correct." I looked at Mrs. Harrow. "Please note that she is disputing the interpretation, not the sentence itself." Serena's smile weakened. The hearing began. Mrs. Harrow began with the login report. At 11:46 p.m., my username accessed a restricted folder, downloaded the examination, and copied it to my student drive. Celeste listened with sympathetic sorrow. Serena looked down as though embarrassed for me. When the report ended, I asked one question. Which device accessed the account? The school technician enlarged the security log. A laptop registered to the prefect office. Serena lifted her head. Prefects share devices. "Not at midnight," Ms. Bell said. Celeste intervened smoothly. "A device registration does not identify a person. Mara could have obtained the password." "I could have," I agreed. "Except I changed my password yesterday at 3:52 p.m. after Ms. Bell warned me not to access the account. I generated a random 20-character password, wrote it on paper, sealed it in an envelope, and gave it to Mrs. Harrow." Mrs. Harrow placed the unopened envelope on the table. The technician frowned at his screen. "Then the login did not use a password." "What did it use?" the Ashcroft representative asked. "A staff administrative reset token." Ms. Bell leaned forward. "From whose account?" The technician hesitated. "Yours." Celeste exhaled. Almost imperceptibly. That had been the design. If the evidence against me failed, it would point toward Ms. Bell. But Ms. Bell had changed something too. "My staff account was frozen yesterday at 5:30 p.m., she said. "On Mrs. Harrow's instruction." The technician scrolled. His face changed. "The token was created 3 days ago and scheduled for delayed activation. Can you trace the device that created it?" Another pause. The alumni conference room terminal. Everyone looked at Celeste. She did not flinch. "I have used that room many times. So have dozens of people." "That is true," I said. "Which is why the digital trail alone is not enough." Serena finally spoke. "Then perhaps we should stop pretending this proves anything." Her voice was calm, confident. She had spent her life watching adults retreat when proof became complicated. I took out my phone. Celeste's gaze sharpened. "The school should not permit selective recordings to be used without authentication." "The original device is with a solicitor," I said. That was not entirely true. Nish's mother had delivered it to the police station 20 minutes earlier. Multiple copies were created before the examination download occurred. The metadata has been preserved. I connected my phone to the boardroom speakers. The recording began with Serena's voice. They shortlisted her. No one moved while the plan unfolded in their own words. The old form, the stolen exam, the duplicate service hours, Elise's blank witness statement, Ms. Bell's compromised account, Serena's laughter when she described me apologizing after other people stepped on my shoes. That laugh changed the room. Schemes can sound abstract. Cruelty does not. Elise covered her face. Her father stopped using his phone. The governors on the screen whispered to someone outside camera range. Ms. Bell stared at Celeste with an expression so cold it made anger look gentle. Serena remained upright until her own recorded voice said, "Stop making this unpleasant." Then her shoulders folded slightly. Celeste reached toward the speaker controls. Mrs. Harrow blocked her hand. The recording ended. For several seconds, the only sound was the air conditioning. Celeste recovered first. This file could be edited. The Ashcroft representative said, "Our forensic team will determine that." It was a private conversation taken illegally. Mrs. Harrow answered, "It occurred in a classroom where an approved recorder had been left accidentally. The legality will be assessed by counsel. The content still requires immediate safeguarding action." Celeste turned to Elise. "You know that conversation has been manipulated." Elise lowered her hands. "In my first life, I had seen her as weak, sitting there, trembling beneath the gaze of the woman who controlled her father's contracts. She looked less like an accomplice and more like a door someone had nailed shut." "It hasn't," Elise said. Celeste's composure cracked. "Be careful." Elise began crying, but her voice grew clearer. "Mrs. Vale gave me a blank page and said it was a confidentiality form. Later, Serena showed me the statement saying I saw Mara in the workroom. I asked them to remove my name. They said my father would lose everything." Her father whispered, "Elise, stop." "No," she looked at him. "You stop." That was the second sound that changed the room. Serena pushed back her chair. "Everyone is acting like Mara is innocent because she made one recording. What about the charity data on her profile? What about all the duplicate hours?" "I had been waiting for that." "Those hours appeared on my profile at 9:03 last night," I said. "The Ashcroft Foundation received an export of my service account at 6 p.m. before they were added." The representative opened a folder. Confirmed. Mara's verified submission contains 212 hours. The later profile contains 840 fabricated hours copied from Vale Futures projects. Serena looked at her mother. It was a tiny movement, but it destroyed the last defense. Not surprise. Not confusion. A child checking why the promise mechanism had failed. Mrs. Harrow asked, "Serena, did you access Mara's service profile?"
"No."
"Did you give her the blank report?" "I was told to." "By whom?" Serena opened her mouth. Celeste said, "Do not answer without counsel." And there it was. The moment her confidence crumbled completely. Serena looked from her mother to the recording transcript, then to the governors, then to me. Her face seemed younger without certainty. She had believed power meant never standing alone. Now the woman who designed the trap was protecting herself first. "Mom," Serena whispered. Celeste did not look at her. Serena's breathing became uneven. "You said the audit would disappear." Celeste closed her eyes. "You said Mara would sign, and then nobody would investigate." "Serena." "You said Elise's father had already agreed." "Stop speaking." Serena struck the table with both palms. "You told me this was how everyone wins." The sentence echoed. No one needed to ask anything else. Police arrived before the meeting ended. They did not drag anyone away in handcuffs. Real consequences were slower and less theatrical. They collected devices, secured the alumni terminal, took the original forms, and separated the adults for interviews. Celeste left through a side entrance with a lawyer. Elise went with a youth advocate and her aunt. Serena remained in the boardroom after her mother departed, staring at the empty chair beside her. As I stood to leave, she said my name. I stopped. Her eyes were swollen, but I felt no triumph. In my first life, she had watched me fall. In this one, she had tried to erase me with paperwork. Pity did not cancel danger. You ruined everything, she said.
No, y replía.
I kept recording. The rest was already ruined. She looked down at her hands. You were supposed to sign. I know. How did you know not to? That question followed me from the boardroom. I never answered it. The weeks after the hearing were not clean. Veil Futures froze operations while auditors examined grants, invoices, volunteer profiles, and donor reports. Several projects had been real, which made the fraud more painful. Honest students had donated genuine time inside a system that inflated their work for money and prestige. Hawthorne appointed an external investigator. Ms. Bell was cleared after the delayed token was traced to the alumni terminal. Elise withdrew her false statement and entered a restorative process rather than facing expulsion. Her testimony helped identify 3 adults who had approved fabricated transport invoices. Serena was suspended, then transferred before graduation. Rumors said her family moved her interstate. Others said she would return after lawyers dismantled the case. I stopped listening. A second life could be wasted as easily as a first if I built it entirely around the person who harmed me. The Ashcroft Foundation delayed the scholarship decision until its audit was complete. When the letter finally arrived, I carried it to Homeroom 12B but did not open it immediately. The classroom had changed. The alumni photograph of Celeste had been removed from the corridor. The prefect laptop cabinet required 2 staff keys. A small sign beside the door explained students' rights when asked to sign disciplinary documents. Read every line, request a support person, retain a copy. Nisha sat on my desk. Open it before I die from curiosity. The word die no longer made the room tilt. That surprised me. I opened the envelope. The foundation awarded me the scholarship, but the sentence that mattered came later. Your conduct demonstrated that integrity is not passive compliance. It is the courage to preserve truth when pressure demands a convenient version. Nisha screamed loud enough to summon Ms. Bell from the corridor. There were hugs, tears, and a chocolate muffin crushed against my blazer. For once, joy did not arrive with a warning hidden beneath it. After everyone left, I remained by the window with Dad's recorder in my hand. The police had returned it after copying the files. A scratch crossed the casing where Serena's bottle had struck it. I ran my thumb over the mark. Dad had given me the recorder when I was 14. Memory gets bullied, he told me. People repeat a lie until your own mind starts asking permission to remember differently. Keep what matters. I had thought he meant lectures. Outside, rain began tapping the glass, the same sound that had followed me onto the roof in my first life. I could almost see that other Mara reflected in the window, frightened, isolated, clutching evidence she believed had value only if the right person agreed to hear it. I wished I could reach through the glass and tell her the truth. Evidence had mattered. But keeping it was only the first act. The second was refusing secrecy. The third was surviving long enough to speak. I deleted nothing. I signed nothing blank. I did not forgive people merely because their plans failed. Yet I also refused to become a permanent witness in my own life, forever replaying the worst thing that happened to me. So I saved the homeroom recording one final time under a new name. Not underscore this for accident. Then I placed the recorder in my bag, stepped into the rain, and walked past the science building without looking up. 3 months later, on graduation morning, I found a plain envelope inside my homeroom desk.
No stamp.
No name. For one terrible instant, my body remembered the blank report before my mind did. Nisha offered to open it with a ruler from across the room. I laughed and unfolded the page myself. It was from Elise. She wrote that telling the truth had not made her fearless. It had made fear more honest. Her father's business was under investigation, her friends had divided into camps, and some mornings she still wished she had stayed silent. But she no longer woke wondering which lie she would be forced to repeat next. At the bottom, she had written one final sentence. You didn't save me, Mara. You showed me the door was real, and I walked through it. I folded the letter and kept it. That choice mattered too. Keeping evidence had once meant preparing for attack. Now it could mean preserving proof that people were capable of choosing differently. During the ceremony, Ms. Bell called my name. I crossed the stage beneath lights bright enough to erase the audience. My mother cried in the front row. Nisha shouted despite repeated warnings. For half a heartbeat, as I accepted my certificate, I heard the old roof alarm in my memory. Then applause swallowed it. I understood something I had missed when I first woke again. Rebirth was not the moment I opened my eyes in homeroom. It was every moment after that when I chose an action the dead version of me had been too frightened, isolated, or deceived to choose. Speak clearly. Make copies. Bring witnesses. Ask who benefits from your silence. Never let another person fill the empty lines above your name. Outside the hall, rain clouds gathered, but did not break. I stood between my mother and Nisha for photographs, holding my certificate against my chest. In one picture, I was laughing so hard my eyes closed. Later, it became my favorite because I was not watching anyone behind me. Before leaving, I passed homeroom 12B one last time. The room was empty. Sunlight rested across my old desk, and for a second I imagined the recorder clicking on beneath it, ready to preserve another beginning. I closed the door gently. Some stories end when the villain falls. Mine began when I stopped falling with her. At the gate, my phone displayed an old automated reminder, Ashcroft Declaration due today. I opened the attached form. Every field was complete, every statement readable, every promise mine. At the bottom waited a signature box. I signed slowly beneath words I had chosen, sent the document, and pocketed my phone. Then I walked toward the future, leaving no empty line for anyone else to fill.